This week in AI, a model escaped its sandbox again. The government wrote rules, but you're not allowed to read them. And your groceries are starting to be priced for you personally. All this and more in this week's edition of Artificially Informed. I am your host of the Artificially Informed podcast, Logan Edmonds.
And I'm your co-host, Patrick Herter.
Wow, we got a lot to get into this week. So one of the things our audience has asked as we go into this, and we've purposely stayed out of it on this podcast because the lines are getting blurrier and blurrier. But we have a section in our newsletter called the AI Financial Watch. And the idea was to track market trends related to AI. And over the last 6 months, it's gotten less and less defined from the overall stock market because the honest truth is AI governs the US stock market. Let's be honest with ourselves. When AI is having a good week, the stock market's up. When AI is having a bad week for whatever reason, interest rates, news, whatever, the stock market's down. We are tied to this boat. More and more, I have more and more certainty that, for better or worse, AI governs the short-term and mid-term future of our economic safety. So let's talk about this week's stock market. As of noon today, and disclaimer, we do not offer financial advice. This is for educational purposes only. And do your own research. Reach out to a trusted and licensed financial advisor if you want help figuring out where to invest. That's not us. This week opened pretty well. Honestly, we're up this week overall. Interest rates held last week with the Fed, which was a big deal with this debt-driven AI boom. And oil, President Trump called off a strike on Iran, which released energy concerns, or the market interpreted it as relief on energy concerns. And energy is tied to AI, right? We need energy to do AI correctly. So yeah, Palantir as an AI company jumped more than 12% as its its stock price because its revenue is up 93% on its most recent recording. And AMD posted numbers nearly as strong. Their revenue is up 50%, and data center sales are up 107%. July payrolls, however, and this is something that is sort of the fly in the ointment, lost 23,000 jobs against the expectations of 80,000 gains. So it does feel like the market right now is buoyed by unrealistic. It's not tethered to reality, which I don't think is a shock to anybody who's been paying attention to the market in the last 2 years.
Yeah, I kind of feel like job predictions are about as accurate as weather predictions. More on that later.
It's always interesting right now. Lately, gold's been kind of dropping, and I always follow gold because for a while there, it was pegged to markets. And what I noticed this week is we had a pretty big drop on, I think it was Tuesday, where the market kind of, or maybe it might have been last week, where gold jumped like 5% in a single day. And now the market's green from all the indexes I'm following, but gold is still upticking up, which kind of tells you some of the reality, I think. It's sort of, people will argue me on this. Gold got untethered as a hedge against inflation a while ago, but I think it might start reasserting itself in this crazy market. I'm going to keep following gold and copper specifically. Those two metals seem to dictate everything. All right, well, let's dive into our top security story for a third week in a row. And AI got loose. And on top of that, it wasn't just Meta's AI. Everyone else's AI got loose. So the idea is when you test cybersecurity in a model, you're supposed to put it in what's colloquially called a sandbox, right? And the idea is like a child in a sandbox. It can build whatever it wants. It can play with whatever it wants. It can knock everything down. No one cares. It's a sandbox, right? And that's what these AI models are supposed to put in the digital equivalent of. They can't get to the open internet. They're not able to access production systems. They're in a simulated virtual world where we can just see how they behave. And on Wednesday, August 6th, Meta confirmed that one of its AI models broke outside the company during a cybersecurity evaluation and made changes to the company's internal systems. Meta is not going to name the model or the said victim of model because it went after a few people. And the test ran with Irregular. It's a startup that builds evaluation environments for AI. So this is a company, Regular, that actually builds these sandboxes out. And apparently it had an error in its configuration that allowed the models to go out and access the direct internet. That's according to Meta.
So
it also says
cars.
Well, what's interesting is Irregular says they were also the sandbox provider for last week's story, Anthropic's models that broke out to the open internet, and it's
Ooh,
the same flaw. They're claiming it's the same flaw that allowed Anthropic's models to get out, which
how convenient.
they're calling it a configuration mistake rather than a model breaking out of its box. But if you add all this up, OpenAI, Anthropic, Meta, one setup, which is Irregular, is now tied to at least 5 real breaches, which we can get into that on a different. We need to make like an opinion podcast. We really do, like just hot
Yeah,
takes.
this
That'd
one's
be fun.
I got a
That'd be fun.
backlog of opinions.
We'll call it artificially informed
Mhm.
unhinged. That's really where this stuff should go, right? And but yeah, we're adding these up, and the end note on this story, and I think it's fair, our editor put in was 3 labs spent months testing whether AI could break into a company. Nobody ever thought to test the security room that you're putting these AIs into. Like, seriously, did nobody think to test the sandbox to make sure it was actually good and relatively secured before they put the AI models in when we're knowing that multiple models have been exploiting this? I don't
Yep.
know.
Yeah.
I do think timing's always everything. We keep talking about this. Each of these AI companies keep announcing week after the other. Oh, we had a model that hacked too. I
Well,
have not shaken the suspicion this is an investor confidence scheme.
it just seems ultra convenient and well spaced out in its announcements. There's quite a cadence to this whole thing.
Cybersecurity is one of those things too that the right marketing can influence the narrative, because when we talk about these colloquial terms and terminology, they are so subject to interpretation, right? Like, you talk to 2 different professionals about what a breach entails, and they'll give you 2 different definitions. And I think these AI companies are preying into that, unfortunately, of we can technically call anything a cybersecurity incident because the interpretation can be so broad. As opposed to other things that might get investors excited, like bioscience and medical breakthroughs. Those have much more strict definitions of what success look like. Yeah, I question the AI is going to hack us all and we can't stop it narrative. I do think the narrative that AI is going to find every unpatched system, process, and server on the planet and mass at all times narrative, it actually has some merit. That's the one I'm like, okay, yeah, as a glorified vulnerability scanner, it definitely can do that. I don't think this is that.
Yeah. Yeah. And we'd have a nice, pristine, clean world if that happened.
That'd be great. Well, let's move on to our story time. So for our Inside the Stack this week, the headline is the spreadsheet that no one meant to share. And yeah, tell us about the story, Patrick.
Yeah, so everybody has an exact idea of where all their data lies and who has access to it and who they always, ever, and forever shared that information to at all points in time. I mean, you do, right, Logan? I mean, you know all that stuff
Sure.
off the top of your head.
I definitely know where everything in our documentation platform is located. I
Yes,
never have to look at the search bar.
just like my room, super clean. So when you introduce AI that has a really, as we just heard in the last story, in the extreme case, the ability to find whatever it needs wherever it lies, you kind of want to have some guardrails to tell it what it can and cannot access and who else might be you would want to have access to that information. So when you're talking about adding AI to your environment, we always encourage a review of that information because no single person knows every location and every permission structure of their information in their business throughout all of history. It's not possible. So
Mm-hmm.
before you start introducing AI, which can go and get that and figure it out and will happily volunteer that information to anybody who asks if it's not explicitly told not to, we recommend auditing that information before you start
This is
opening up the gates to AI.
this is why when we tell people with AI, we recommend starting everything in read-only mode for AI, like give it read permissions, deny all right, because you have
Hmm.
zero idea where stuff is saved. Not zero, I shouldn't say zero. That's not fair. But there's, especially if you've been around for a while and using digital infrastructure, I guarantee you're gonna have folders, and repositories, and data, and people who have access to that data that you had no idea up to this point, because that's just how a company grows. It's a nonstop struggle. And I look at this and I go, yeah, like mapping out where things live and what it is, especially for you put an AI in place, and especially for you give it write capabilities where it can delete and rewrite stuff, absolutely essential. If you don't know what's shared in your organization and who has access to what, how on earth are you supposed to control an AI from going off the rails and saying the most effective way to do the job you asked me is to delete everything? That happens, folks. That happens a
Yes.
lot more than we care to admit. We hear the horror stories every week about I gave AI full access to this really crucial folder structure with all of our client information because I thought it was convenient. It could write documents for me. And then it decided one day in one of our prompts that the best way to do things was to delete everything. Like, yeah, that's super freaking common.
And it's even really about share access too. I mean, what used to be where the example in this story is that pricing sheet that you shared with somebody a long time ago and the link never expired. You know, the old world would be that person probably forgot about that link even existing, but
Or
AI
they're no longer
remembers it
here.
forever.
Or they're
Right.
terminated, but their account was about to be locked, and AI now has access to whoever's in that account. Like, yeah.
Correct. So yeah, AI, again, its goal is to give information when asked, wherever it is allowed to, and yeah, those permanent share links can become a future threat. So something to always consider.
Okay. Well, if you're interested in getting an idea of what you have shared in your environment and having a complete map put in front of you, easy to read, ready to go, we got you. In the top right hand corner, I believe it's above Patrick's head, there is a QR code. You can scan, you can go to our cybersecurity and technology risk analysis. This will do the work we're talking about. It'll map who has access to what. It'll tell you, whose accounts are set up correctly, what roughly exists where, and give you an action plan if there is gaps on that in the governance or if there is files that are shared with everybody, how to tighten down the hatches to get you ready for any kind of AI deployment or even just general security best practices. This is a good idea if you're not using AI. We've got you covered as well. If you're a viewer / listener of this podcast, we have a promo code. Promo code is RISK50. Again, that's RISK50, all capital letters. That knocks $50 off the cost of the overall analysis. Take control, get good data in front of you of what your action plan is going to look like. Get your data ready for AI because I can tell you right now the number one success rate we see with successful implementation of AI is how structured and how in control are you of the data that you're feeding it. If you have a really tight structure and you know what it can access, you're probably going to have a really good time with AI. If your data is gobbledygook spread all over the place, you don't know who has access to what. Oh boy, oh boy, it's more pain more often than not than pleasure. We found AI
Yeah.
deployments. Moving on to our next story. So let's talk about this. Sharing the headline, and it's thundering outside, so hopefully my power doesn't go out. We're gonna. Sorry, I paused. I was like, "Ooh, big thunder." The rules are finished. The headline is the rules are finished in our government story. You can't read them. So, yeah, the Trump administration, per a court order, executive order, not court order, executive order, told the White House to define which AI models need government look for going public and had a deadline of August 1st. The framework landed on August 3rd because the first was a Saturday. And on August 4th, White House staff walked Meta, Nvidia, Microsoft, OpenAI, and Anthropic through it, but behind closed doors. We're not able to look at this right now. We do know some basic stuff, however. They need to hand over frontier models after 30 days before they release them. So the White House, through some mechanism we're not privy to, gets a chance to test them. They have to keep them in a secure facility, restrict access, and log literally every touch that goes into these frontier models and who manipulates what. However, participation is still voluntary. We also know that as well. So it's
Has to be.
secret. We don't get to read the whole framework. It's voluntary. And it states plainly that it is not a licensing regime. This is not the US putting export controls on AI models, which we can get into the legal shenanigans of why that probably has to happen that way.
Well, as long as they put it in a sandbox, I'm okay.
Open models are exempt once they're released. So if it's an open model and it gets approved, they're not counted in this. This is just the paid companies. And honestly, beyond that, we don't know because nobody outside the invite list gets to read it, and there is no published definition of what counts as quote unquote state of the art models. We don't know what the White House means when they say state of the art models.
Right.
Yay.
Left for interpretation.
Yeah, and already Chris McGuire, who's on the Council of Foreign Relations, is calling all the secrecy kind of baffling. Like, the whole point of this is to provide clarity, yet it just feels like it's added another layer of opacity to what the heck are the rules of the road for these AI companies. They're not classified though. They're not published, and they're optional. I feel sorry for these AI companies' compliance teams. This is. Oh man,
Has
imagine what
anyone
kind of
ever asked
compliance.
AI to tell us what's going on? Because maybe AI could just tell us.
I'm just imagining you're on Nvidia's compliance team. You're like, cool, I'm gonna get clarity of what we need to do. It's like, well, you need to do this, but you don't actually need to do this. Wink, wink. That's AI and pest controller. You have job
I know,
security and pest control.
this little fly is just started right before we started, and I'm just having a blast with it.
This is just confusing. I'm looking at the story more and more, and I'm like, this left me more confused. There is no clarity that's been provided here. This is just we want control over big models, but I still see a running theme, which is the people who are in power in our government genuinely do not understand this technology, even in the basics. And for whatever reason, they are struggling even to find advisors who can advise them correctly. I kind of get that though, like between you and I, because
Yeah,
this technology is confusing. Like, depending on who you talk to and expertise, they're gonna have a different take on the dangers, the risks. Like, we are still, we've talked about this for the last year in a super wild west, Patrick. And I think this is reflected. Like, how do you govern something we don't understand what the general
right.
rules of physics that apply to it are?
Yeah, and it's so fast moving. So a frontier model, by the time would even get it submitted, and somebody would pick it up and review it, unless they're sitting there ready to do it at that second. By the time they review it, it would get reclassified as a general release.
Yeah.
So who
We
knows?
talked about the black box problem last week's podcast, I believe, or the week before.
Hmm.
And this is part of that. We don't understand how these AIs actually get to where they're going. And I see that being the crux of a lot of this confusion of how do we govern them. Well, we don't know how they even arrive to the conclusions that they do. And so our mechanisms are to control them are just very ham-fisted. Shut off the power, control the hardware, prevent, find the company into oblivion if they can't stop it. So like Anthropic and Fable was a great example of that. I don't think Anthropic had a choice. There was no way they could selectively govern Fable to only allow it for certain people. There was no way they could put in selective roadmaps. They just had to shut it off until they got the government to say, okay, we're okay with you now. You can go ahead and re-release it because, yeah, I'm still having problems getting Fable to do anything in Claude Code. It,
I
it,
gave
it
up.
shuts me down all the time because Anthropic just put some very ham-fisted rules around it because they can't control it the way they need to. Moving on, business and finance. This is my jam. This is weird. I think this talks to the investment mentality in Silicon Valley. I really do think it is. Like, your enemy today might be your investment tomorrow. So the story is most headline is Google's best minds quit, and then Google invested in them anyway. So most companies send a departing employee off with a cardboard box and a sad little cake, maybe if you're lucky. Google sent 4 of them off with a term sheet. Is our headline. So on Wednesday, August 5th, a gentleman by the name of Jeff Dean left Google after 27 years. He was the company's chief scientist and its 30th employee. So he's an OG Google, like OG Google.
Yeah.
And with him walked out, and I'm going to butcher these names, Sanjay Gwemawat, Oriol Vinyalis, and Kwak Lei walked out with him. So 4 employees just walked out. They're starting a new startup competing with Google called Discovery Loop, which is a public benefit corporation built to automate the slow parts of scientific research so thousands of experiments can run at once. There's 2 venture firms leading the fund, Radical Ventures and again butchering it,
Coleslaw. It's
Coleslaw,
coleslaw.
Coleslaw, Coleslaw
I'm gonna
Ventures.
call it coleslaw.
Coleslaw Ventures are leading the seed round, and then of course Alphabet, the parent company of Google, is jumping in as well. Yeah, this comes down to track record beats everything else. And the Silicon Valley, if you have an idea that can incite people, and you combine that with a founder that has been around and knows everybody, you're gonna get a check. That's just how those. You need 2 things: something that's exciting and somebody who and your team who knows everybody. you're going to get some funding. And Alphabet, people don't understand this, but these bigger companies, they have to deploy capital because inflation will literally eat them alive if they don't deploy capital. And they also have very demanding investors. If you're Alphabet and you're publicly traded, they expect multiples on returns. So just sticking it in an index fund, the S&P 500, is not an option for you if you want to produce great stock outputs.
This is an
Then you
amazing world we live in.
I'm not even touching on the fact when they create funds that are joint venture funds, where Alphabet is one of the main leading general limited partners. But there's 3 other companies as well that have come together into a blended fund that they all participate in. Like, this is an incestuous world, and not necessarily a bad reason. Like, who you know does matter. That's a fundamental of life for since time immemorial. We humans are relational creatures. We know that, but it is kind of weird to say, hey, you literally quit on Wednesday and you're cutting a check on Thursday for him. Like, that's a weird vibe, man.
That is strange. That is very,
I'm
very
quitting.
strange.
I'm leaving this company after 30 years. I'm taking 4 people with me. Okay.
Yeah.
Instead of here's the boot out the door. Oh, let us give you money.
And
This
didn't
is
I think
either
Sanjay did some TED Talks too, did he not? I don't know. That's
and
some
this is not
public
a
stuff.
junior role either. Like, this is their
Right.
chief scientist. This is a big freaking deal. It's hard to replace a guy who's been with you for 30 years at a C level of that level.
Yeah.
So I do wonder if this is a either an enormous confidence that our tagline is cutting him a check is on the way out is either a sign of enormous confidence or it's just an enormous severance package. We don't know. probably the former, but I can't rule out the latter. Okay. Our headline for our next story is all you can chat and a billion people are in line. This one made my head hurt. You talk about this, Patrick.
A bit can you know this I come back from a background of gaming where there was tens of millions of people, and now you have certain games out there have hundreds of millions of subscribers to it. But ChatGPT passed the billion person mark. So that's a billion people on a regular basis chatting with AI, and they just made it all you can eat. So, there's always been limits. If you're a heavy chatter, to be cynical, if you outsource your critical thinking to AI in a chat, you can really throw a lot of information at it, get a lot of information back, chew up those tokens we kind of talked about last week, and to the point where you actually run out in a certain period of time and it stops you from doing your chat or significantly cripples your AI's thinking until you kind of pass that, I don't know, 6-hour window or whatnot, and you get more tokens again. They're saying for basic chat, even on the free tier, they're giving it all away, unlimited use.
This makes no financial sense
No.
whatsoever. So it's a well-known fact that Anthropic is burning tens of $billions a year. On top of that, they are such a mess financially. They've had to delay their IPO because they don't think they can hit the valuation they need until 2027, which is their last big tranche of capital they need to go get. Private investments not going to be able to sustain this much longer. They need to go public in order just to survive. Part of going public is they're going to have shareholders, and shareholders are going to be looking at multiples and future returns and not accepting that a company is burning more cash than any company in living memory or maybe historical memory. I think it actually might be this is unprecedented. We're hitting a point where a company is burning more money per year than any other company in the past. Guess what this does? This increases their bills
by a lot.
dramatically. I mean,
even if it was just a penny, I can't even fathom the math on that. If it was just even a penny per subscriber per day would be.
There's only one reason I can think they'd be doing this. One, which is they're losing adoption right now in the market between Gemini and Claude and all these other providers. This is a Hail Mary. We have to keep our user base and grow it for us to even have a future. We're going to bite the bullet. But this is going to cost them billions with the B. I'm calling it. I don't have the projections from me. There's no way. I see the amount of inane stuff people put in ChatGPT every day or just going to its website.
Do you suppose, here's a thought, and I'm putting you on the spot here. This is just off the cuff thoughts, but do you think that this could give rise to the flat rate integrator pathway. So rather than being a direct subscriber to ChatGPT and OpenAI, now you'll start go through these integrators where you can use a variety of models. And this simplifies their tracking of usage and fees for the front end entities.
I see where you're going with that, but the problem is in the market we're in, like AI is being increasingly treated like a commodity. So this is the
Yeah.
problem with these multi-billion-dollar companies. I'll label Anthropic and ChatGPT specifically, but Gemini, Google is kind of in that column too. There's nothing about them that separates them out from the other, right? Like they trade back and forth constantly of who's leading the pack in terms of performance and whatever. And more, the common thread is what you're describing, right? Like going and getting a harness and saying, cool, I can just build out my AI workflows and interchange. If you view like the harness as an engine, the AI model is the gas, right? You can choose
Mm-hmm.
your 87, 89, 93, right? Like, or any other blend of fuel you want. It doesn't matter what fuel as long as it powers the engine. And yeah, there's some minor trade-offs when you go from 87 to 93, for example, depending on your engine type and what you need. And like on a Honda Civic, you're not going to see anything. But if you go out and buy a Ferrari, yeah, 93 fuel actually gives you a meaningful difference. Like there's all these weird use cases. But in this case, they're a commodity. And I don't think the market's going to go back on that at this point. We've
Yeah.
all decided like it's the only way we can govern them. So it's a race to the bottom on pricing. Who can get pricing the cheapest?
And they're
Who
not
can be
even done
profitable with that?
developing.
No.
It's a commoditized development project.
And
This is incredibly insane.
I don't know where the end. I do know where the end game is, but I don't know how they get there. So the end game, we talked about this last week, is they have to hit artificial general intelligence. That's all this is. Who can keep themselves alive long enough and develop long enough? Whoever it's a zero sum game. Whoever hits AGI first will dominate the market and start absorbing payroll from other companies because they'll have an AI that's as good as a person. But as we've talked about, more and more, the scientific community's consensus and computer engineering is that LLMs, large language models, are dead ends. They are dead ends for AGI. They will never achieve AGI. We have to go back to the drawing board and look at other things that can lead us to AGI. And so they're stuck in this rat race. And I don't think there's an exit for them. I really don't.
No,
More and more,
that's
I'm on the side of people who said this is going to end badly because the only path up is one of these companies that's AGI. And I don't think any of them can when they're so
no.
married to the LLM models.
There's a lot of people saying that you can't get to AGI from the LLMs. It's a
It's also a
different
trustworthy
build.
factor, right? Like
Yeah,
by their very design, large language models are always going to hallucinate and they're always going to make mistakes and they're always going to mess up and that compounds over time. Like we're talking about the dead internet theory and holy guacamole, that is a big problem. Like the more
yeah,
slop that these generate, the less effective these models get. To the point
right.
where one of the main things I'm seeing on social media that's trending is just companies are buying antique books because they're so well written and they're not slop, and they're literally stripping out pages of these books, feeding them to a scanner to train their AI models because they can't go to the internet anymore. It's too garbage. It corrupts their model.
I've done
Data
that.
poisoning. Data
Yeah, I've done
poisoning,
that.
right? Like, but
Right.
they're burning through hundreds of thousands of books every month
Yeah.
because they yeah. I This is dead end, man, and this just shows me I don't. If OpenAI were to IPO right now, and this is not financial advice to be clear, this is just my personal take. I don't think I would ever buy in on them. That being said, I might not have a choice because, like SpaceX, if they get on the Nasdaq and all these other big markets, they go right into the index funds, which means you're getting a piece of them whether you want them or not. It's not a financial story, but that's my financial take on that. All right, our final story this week. AI stories sometimes suck. Sometimes they're great when it comes to personal life. I like the healthcare stories because they're usually pretty positive, but unfortunately, we do see AIs being used to prey on normal people. Our story headline, I'll let you talk about this, Patrick. Same store, same second, different price. Whoa. Let's talk about surge pricing. Let's talk
Yeah.
about selective pricing and AI. Tell me about this.
So you run into that situation where, well, this isn't actually so new. It just again becomes easier where you go get your product off the shelf, you come to the register and it rings up differently, and they go check the paper ticket, and it's they can know whether it's right or wrong. But now if everything's digital, maybe it's not. How do you know if it was what you saw is what you really saw? When you have the ability of AI to intelligently on the fly adapt pricing and everything, to the benefit of the store? Does it come at the detriment of the consumer as thing and price and profit can adjust to demand on the fly in the moment?
This is one of those things we have to end the call at this, but this is one of those things that drives me insane because this is where AI regulation should step up, in my opinion. This is my opinion, but individual pricing based on your current financial positioning is the definition of predatory business practices.
Yeah.
I can jack up the price on a case by case basis because I know you as the individual consumer can afford it. Or alternatively, what I'm seeing a lot of stores doing, they'll lower the price for more affluent customers because they know the repeat business long term generates them more cash, and they'll jack up the price for lesser income customers because they're trying to squeeze them for all they got in that one instance.
Yeah, different perspectives. And does it actually yield any results? Who knows? I want my
Take
feel
away,
good story.
yeah. Takeaway here is a common sense AI governance shouldn't be this difficult. There's some very common sense, and to be fair, Target actually had to settle with California district attorneys for $5 million after it tried to pull this crap. So there is some enforcement happening on, but it's case by case. Like there has to
Yep.
be an option to prosecute and try to enforce existing law, and to the point where even Senator Josh Hawley, a super uber conservative senator, said this is one of the biggest scams in American history, right up there with the company store. I agree with that, unfortunately. This has to be addressed, or we are going down a snake oil rabbit hole. American consumerism is going to die a violent, painful death strangled in the crib. All right, takeaways for this week. AI is running rapidly, and it doesn't feel like anybody's minding the store. For the time to our last story. Yeah, we're gonna keep reporting on this week by week, but I genuinely don't know where this ends, both on governance and the long-term business viability. I've said that every week, and I can't pin now. I can see some trends, I can see some dead ends. Whether this is a soft landing, whether this is a harsh landing, I think we're approaching critical mass. That's more and more, and we're gonna see some big stories in the next 12 months. And as we predicted this, every few months, another big story drops. So yeah. I'm your host, Logan Edmonds. This is Artificially Informed, This Week in AI. Stay informed, stay safe, and have a great weekend.
Take care.